colleague Mel Jordan has put a little bit of auto theory in there herself, talking about how she's always thought of Joe Spencer and Cindy Sherman's work was not self-portrait, and can talk about that in terms of art and practice, and thinking of this maybe similar to what you were saying, Jackie. And then she has to go off and see her son. So
yeah,
gets the person.
Well, she's absolutely right. They're not self-portraits. I mean, that would be very much in inverted commas. They're undoing the self-portrait, both of them in very different ways, but at similar moments. Some of them.
It's Carolina. You have your hand up. Can you?
Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi.
Perfectly.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this talk and the responses. I've been very much thinking about these topics in sort of solitude, or at least academic solitude. So it was kind of heartwarming to be here tonight. I have I don't know, perhaps a bit of a I don't know, simple question. I'm not sure. Anyways, my question is, there is somehow an assumption or a link, but also a factual connection at the same time between a certain idea of femininity or womanhood, whatever it means, or a feminine position, and auto theory or auto fiction. And I wonder how the panelists would conceptualize this link, because on the one hand, we can find counterfactual examples. We can think of, I don't know, Carrère, or we can think of Walter Siti, who's an Italian writer. And there is a sense in which also fiction, for instance, is an increasingly popular genre in a way. So that in a sense, it is kind of the new trend, even if we want to use this word in literature. Also, on the other hand, it is hard to deny that there is this connection, especially when one thinks of the seminal works like, Chris Kraus, Maggie Nelson, and even before, like Virginia Woolf. But it has become increasingly more difficult to say, okay, this is feminine. What is feminine of this? I think partially Angela replied to this question when she said about the subjugated voices. I mean, this whole oral culture of women talking about personal matters that has been silenced by the history, meaning that it has not been written. So I see this as a link, but I also think it's complicated because it is increasingly complicated to define what is feminine and what is not. So I would say this is my question. Thank you. Or comment, whatever.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to respond to that?
Oh, I think to respond to that.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's actually quite a complex question. I think it's deceptively, you said it was a simple question. I think at the beginning it's deceptively simple. I think I'm reminded.
My defensive strategy. I always say it's a simple question at the beginning, so. But simplicity is difficult.
Yes, no, I think it's a great question, and I'm thinking of Charlotte Brunston's article that was also in Women Take Issue, which was the first feminist publication out of cultural studies. And the chapter, I think, was entitled, "It is well known that women by nature are inclined to be rather personal." And that, I think that was probably the mid-70s. Angela will remember the date of that, but probably the mid-70s. So it is well known that by nature women are inclined to be rather personal. And that was a quote from a judge. And Charlotte then writes about feminine genres and voices and so on. And I think what you're getting at is that that sense of self-disclosure is, I think you're getting at exactly what Ballant's starting point was, which is that those forms of self-disclosure are associated with conventional genres of femininity, which is precisely why Ballant then refuses them. So Ballant sets up, my talk began with Ballant setting up the expectation of feminine disclosure. Oh, we're going to hear about the women in Ballant's family and all the different sort of emotional entanglements between Ballant and these women in the family. And no, we're going to hear about the expectation and what it feels like to have that expectation generated. And then it's going to be refused, leaving us to reflect on our expectation. It doesn't satisfy, it doesn't offer that kind of satisfaction. It doesn't satisfy the hunger, as Angela put it earlier. So I think there is an expectation, and in terms of a gendering of the intimacy of self-disclosure. And I suppose that's why I'm both drawn to it and skeptical about it. That's why I'm willing to enter into dialogue about the forms of it and the shape of it and the appeal of it, both in terms of writing and reading and in terms of being read. But I also then want to step back from it and undo it. And I suppose I was trying in the talk, in the structure of the talk, I was trying to generate those kinds of expectations and then undo them or shift them. And I was attempting as well to shift from the position of the subject to the position of the object. And I did that several times to try and undercut the expectations of certain kinds of emotional identification, I suppose. So I was enacting femininity to some extent, and then I was trying to undo it, and then I was setting it up again, and then I was trying to step back from it. So it's not an answer to your question, but it's certainly at the heart of what I wasn't just playing with, I don't think. It was actually very emotional to read it. So it wasn't just a formal play, but the structure and the moves that I make within the talk, and I think the way people responded to it perhaps picked up on this, instantiates a certain version of femininity and then attempts to put something in tension with it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is anyone? Well, Angela's got a hand up.
Thank you so much again, Jackie, for then your responses, which have been so interesting and which take what you've been, the lecture, kind of further. And I really appreciate that. And as you were talking, I was thinking, I think my immediate reaction is to see continuities. And maybe that's because you started not just with Lauren Berlant, but with Jo Spence and Valerie Walker-Dean. And so my response has been to see continuities that go right through it, wherein I see you as finally, even though there is quite a lot of ambivalence and uncertainty and unresolvability, nevertheless having documented ruptures, occupying a psychoanalytic or a psychosocial, psychosexual kind of intellectual stance, which I think has been such an important part of like the Feminist Cultural Studies project. So I think that's what I particularly enjoyed from the lecture this evening, that there is a sense of kind of being able to see those continuities and the way in which, like, as you say, femininity is staged and undone. And as you were speaking, I was also thinking of the move from Charlotte Brunson's, not just Raymond Williams' Structure of Feeling, but Charlotte Brunson's work on women's TV and femininity as genres of, and then so feminine genres of TV into Lauren Berlant's femininity as genre. So there are such clear steps there that I think really warrant the kind of associative methodology that you have really enacted this evening. So very open-ended, but in the end, kind of pulling back to mother, to good enough mothers, to psychoanalytical discourse. So thank you again.
Oh, Poppy.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was really interesting, and I really appreciated all of the stories and the tensions and the shifts in your own subject position through that. So if you publish this at some point, I will really enjoy going back to kind of see the nuances of that again. I wanted to, and sorry, also thank you, of course, to Angela, Adi and Lindsay for your responses, which again were very, very generative and really interesting points. I actually wanted to return to something that Gary said right at the beginning, which I can see his look of concern. And so at the beginning, and do excuse me, Gary, if I misquote you, but you talked about how even some of our most radical writers and thinkers at the moment are kind of being drawn into auto theory. And you said, you know, are they just liberals at heart too? And I wondered, Jackie, if you could respond to that, please.
I was only creating a room for somebody to do.
Well, there you go. I've picked up on it, Gary.
Am I just a liberal too? Is that the question, maybe?
I think, yeah, well, yeah, I guess it's to a certain extent, what are the ways in which we can write using auto theory that challenge being just a liberal too, but still utilize those methods and those devices and those intimacies?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't think there's just one subject position that will sort of fix this.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an end place of safety that we can find. And sure, I also feel the pull of liberalism at certain moments, politically, theoretically, personally. I can imagine I could talk about how I might enter into some of those spaces, knowingly and unknowingly, probably, or strategically, for at a particular political moment, possibly. So I don't think that I don't think there's much to be gained by completely othering liberal humanism as if it doesn't have an appeal. I think the question is to look at the appeal and what can be done with it at particular moments. But I guess for me, the uses of psychoanalytic thinking to push a little bit against some of the popularity of certain forms, certain reparative forms. And you know, I don't want to other reparation either, because you know, Sedgwick's initial distinction between the paranoid and the reparative was not an either or. You know, Sedgwick wanted to be able to use both in conversation with each other. But I think the way that Sedgwick's reparative has traveled and has been mobilized, I think has been motivated by a wish. I do think that. And a wish that is sort of unanswerable, really. A desire that cannot be satisfied, that can only keep being generated. So, I actually, I mean, I like that Angela, I like that you can see continuities, and there was something comforting about that to me, perhaps. But I also think, you know, we have to remember that, you know, Carolyn Steedman's wonderful book, Landscape for a Good Woman, beautiful book, was a you know, a really strong critique of psychoanalysis in terms of working class subjectivities and the way in which the absence of paternal authority in the working class family she's writing about was something she wanted to put in contradiction with Freudian theory. So, and I think generally psychoanalysis has become really quite unpopular intellectually. And, you know, I was certainly very critical of it for a long time myself, and perhaps rather perversely have got more and more interested in it the more unpopular it's become. But I think what I liked about Carolyn Lavender's argument, was that there was a real precision in separating out the version of the reparation to the subject in the Argonauts, the particular desire for the ethico-political solution that the Argonauts perhaps articulates, and perhaps people's love of it reinforces. The difference between that and a psychoanalytic model of the subject where self-knowledge, self-disclosure, some ethical position where it's others that have the aggression and the violence, is impossible. And I think actually, you know, today more than ever, there are many problems with psychoanalysis, but there's much that we can learn from being able to own our own aggression, our own antagonisms, our own how we are drawn to certain kinds of violence, and how we can take responsibility for that. And I think that is different. I think Carolyn's right in that sense. That is different from finding the ethical position, which I think Lindsay argued. Intimacy somehow, the intimacy of that confessional mode somehow makes us think we're entering into an ethical relation with others. And we might not be. In fact, at the very moments we might think we're doing that, we might be doing the opposite. And that is what I think psychoanalysis keeps perhaps reminding us of.
Thank you.
And yes, and thank you for digging me out of the hole. Puppy.
You're welcome.
That was very generous of you. And some of our thinking for this series was precisely, you know, psychoanalysis has, if you like, it's gone out of fashion, and you know, I think we were talking about, it seems strange for the kind of work that we do to be subject to fashion. You think that we might be beyond that or past it, and yet we're not. So it is really important and valuable that you're, you know, bringing that back along with other people back for us. It's really appreciate that. Any more comments, questions, any more hands, anyone waving at me that I can't see? No, we're all good.
I think we could move to thanking Jackie again and closing our first event, and thanking everybody who has attended. It's been a fantastic response we got to the lecture, and we look forward to the next event. And of course, what I personally miss is the possibility of going out for a drink afterwards. So that feels like I've got nostalgia for that, but at least we can meet in this nice, friendly online space with people from different parts of the world. So I noticed a few Americans here at the start of the talk. So thank you again, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And really, it's yeah, it's been wonderful to listen to your responses to the work, and I really appreciated the invitation to write the talk.
Okay.
Yeah, really appreciated it very much.
Shall we say goodbye?
We can, yes. I just want to thank Olga as well for looking after us and sorting out all the tech.
Olga.
Really appreciate it, Olga. All right, bye everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
you.
Thank you.